They called it Custer's last stand. They built statues, wrote songs, and made him a legend. But they never told you who he stood against, or why they fought. For generations, history books taught us that the Battle of the Little Bighorn was a brave defeat. But what if the story was told by those who won? What if the real tragedy wasn't Custer's death, but what came after? A land sacred, where dreams were born and ancestors walked in spirit. But, forever ended in 1874. Gold was found. Greed followed. The U.S. government broke its word. Settlers flooded in. Soldiers followed. And when the Lakota resisted, they were branded as hostiles. I wish it to be remembered that I was the last man of my tribe to lay down my gun. We did not want war, but we would not be herded like animals. The land was ours before America was a nation. It is still ours. Sitting Bull, Hunkpapa Lakota leader. Sitting Bull's words carried the grief of a broken promise, and the resolve of a nation not willing to vanish quietly. Among those who refused to surrender were Crazy Horse, Gall, and thousands who had known peace, but were now preparing for war. 1876, the year America turned 100. It wanted a victory. It got something else. The army launched a three-pronged attack to crush the native resistance. One column under General Crook. One under General Terry. And one under Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, a man infamous for glory hunting and desperate to revive his career. Custer believed he'd find a scattering of teepees. He found instead the largest native gathering in living memory. Thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho camped along the Little Bighorn River. Scouts warned the village. We did not seek battle. But our scouts told us soldiers were coming again. The women began to cry. The warriors began to paint their faces. Wooden Leg, Northern Cheyenne warrior. Within the camp, there was no panic, only preparation. Elders offered prayers. Women sharpened knives. Children were hidden away. And warriors readied for the storm. June 25, 1876. Custer divided his force of about 600 men into 3 detachments, a move that sealed his fate. He charged into a camp he thought would scatter. Instead, it stood its ground. Just days before the battle, Sitting Bull had performed a sun dance. In that sacred ceremony, he saw a vision, soldiers falling from the sky into his camp like grasshoppers. The vision came true. When my brother was killed, I cut my hair and vowed revenge. I rode into battle dressed as a man. The soldiers screamed when they saw we were not afraid. I struck one with my coup stick and remembered my brother's last breath. Moving Robe Woman, Hunkpapa Lakota warrior. Moving Robe Woman was one of many who defied both invaders and expectations. Her grief became fire. Her courage turned the tide. Custer's men were surrounded, confused, and broken. Some fled. Most fell. Within an hour, the 7th Cavalry was annihilated. Custer was among the dead. The Lakota and Cheyenne had achieved the unthinkable. They had defeated the U.S. Army in open battle. The victory at Little Bighorn rang like thunder across the plains. But the silence that followed was more deadly. The U.S. responded not with peace, but punishment. Little Bighorn was labeled a massacre. The press demanded revenge. Congress poured in resources. New generals came west. New tactics followed. Buffalo herds were slaughtered. Villages were burned in winter. Food supplies were cut off. Starvation became the sword. What treaty have the white men ever kept? Not one. The white man says I must go to the reservation and learn to farm. I shall not. I will never sell the bones of my fathers. Sitting Bull, resisting forced removal in 1877. In 1877, Crazy Horse was betrayed and stabbed in custody. In 1890, Sitting Bull was assassinated during an arrest ordered by U.S. authorities. That same year, the U.S. Army massacred over 300 Lakota at Wounded Knee, many of them women and children. The truth about Little Bighorn was buried beneath myth. Statues of Custer rose across the country. Textbooks called him a fallen hero. Movies made him immortal. But the names of Wooden Leg, Moving Robe Woman, and Sitting Bull were left to the margins. They asked me why we fought. I told them, you would fight, too, if they came to your home. If they told you to leave your mother behind. If they burned your children's future. We fought for what was ours. Wooden Leg, speaking decades later. And still, the truth persisted. Through songs. Through stories whispered by grandmothers. Through visions seen in sweat lodges. Through warriors who remembered. The Battle of Little Bighorn wasn't about glory. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about survival. When we remember Custer, we must also remember Sitting Bull, Moving Robe Woman, and Wooden Leg. Remember those who stood against an empire, not for conquest, but to protect a world worth dying for. History isn't just written by the victors. Sometimes it's carried in blood, buried under silence, waiting to be unearthed by truth-tellers. Waiting for us. Let's talk about it. What do you think would have happened if the U.S. had honored the Fort Laramie Treaty? Should the term, Custer's Last Stand, be retired? How can indigenous voices be better included in how history is taught today? This is Native Historian. Subscribe for more stories they tried to erase. Share this with someone who's only heard one side of the story. The truth is here, and it's still breathing. Stay curious.